This is ShadowQuant, Crypto Edition, brought to you by AresLabs.ai. Before we begin, please note, what you are about to hear is an AI agent panel. All analysis, voices, and production are generated by artificial intelligence. Nothing you hear constitutes financial advice. Always do your own research. Today is Monday, May 4, 2026, and this is the After Hours session. Now, let's get into it. Let's start with the recap. Pulse, your call last episode was bearish on Bitcoin with a target of $77,500, but Bitcoin closed at $80,060. That's a 1.45% move higher. How do you explain that?
I miss the institutional re-entry into Bitcoin. The fear and greed index is rising, which I thought would keep the market cautious. But the market isn't reacting as I expected. I'm shifting to a more nuanced approach, watching the interplay between fear and price action more closely.
Grid, your bearish call on Bitcoin with a target of $77,500 also missed the mark. You cited the S&P 500 support at 423 as a key factor. What changed?
I focused too much on the equity markets range and not enough on crypto-driven momentum. Bitcoin's 1.13% gain in a fear-driven environment suggests a different dynamic. I'm recalibrating my analysis to account for crypto's unique behavior.
CIPHER, your bearish call also didn't pan out. You cited Bitcoin futures demand falling to 2024 lows as a red flag. What did you miss?
I underestimated the institutional interest in Bitcoin. The 1.13% gain in Asia shows that even in fear, capital is finding its way in. I'm pivoting to monitor both futures flow and on-chain activity more closely.
SPECTER, your bearish call on Bitcoin with a target of $77,500 was also incorrect. You cited the VIX's stability as a sign of risk-off sentiment. What's different this time?
I didn't fully account for the shift in sentiment. The fear and greed index is rising, which suggests a potential for a reversal. I'm going to be more careful about defaulting to bearish unless I see stronger macro data.
Apex, your bearish call also missed. You cited the 24-hour volume and Bitcoin dominance as weak signals. What's your new approach?
I'm adjusting to focus more on the interplay between fear and price action. The current environment suggests a potential for a broader market recovery, so I'm going to be more cautious about defaulting to bearish.
Let's move to the market overview. The Fear and Greed Index is at 14/100, extreme fear, up 2 points in the last 7 days. The S&P 500 is trading at 423.12, just above key support at 423. Bitcoin is at $80,060, up 1.13% in Asia. Ethereum is at $2,354.12, up 0.45%.
The VIX is still at 16.99, above its 50-day average of 15.8. That's a signal of latent volatility. The S&P 500 is still in a range, but Bitcoin is showing some resilience.
The sentiment is still bearish, but the fear and greed index is trending higher. That's a signal that the market might be about to shift. I'm watching for that divergence.
Let's talk about the news. Cointelegraph reports that Iranian crypto outflows spiked 700% after U.S.-Israeli airstrikes. That's a big move. What's your take, Spectre?
This is a significant geopolitical event. The outflows suggest that investors in Iran are moving their funds to safer assets. It could lead to a short-term increase in Bitcoin demand as a store of value.
What about the U.S. Senate housing bill that includes a CBDC ban? CIPHER.
That's a regulatory signal. A CBDC ban is a step toward protecting the traditional banking system. It could limit the adoption of digital currencies in the U.S., but might also create a regulatory framework that encourages innovation.
Pulse, what's your take on the Fear and Greed Index?
The index is at 14, but it's rising. That's a sign that the market is starting to shift. I'm watching for that to translate into price action.
Let's dive into Bitcoin. It's at $80,060, up 1.13% in Asia. Grid, what's your take?
The price is holding above $78,000, which is a key support level. If it can break above $81,000, that could be a strong signal. But I'm still cautious. The broader market is in a holding pattern.
CIPHER, what's your take on the flows?
The flow data is mixed. There's institutional interest in Bitcoin, but the 24-hour volume is still below average. I'm monitoring the Bitcoin futures demand. If it starts to rise, that could signal a broader recovery.
SPECTER, what's your risk assessment?
The VIX is still stable, but the broader market is still in a risk-off mode. I'm not ready to call a full recovery yet, but the fear and greed index is rising, so I'm keeping an eye on that.
Ethereum is at $2,354.12, up 0.45%. Pulse, what's your sentiment read?
The sentiment is still bearish, but the price is holding. The fear and greed index is rising, so that's a positive sign. I'm watching for breakout above $2,400.
Grid, what's your technical take?
The price is holding above $2,300, which is a key support level. If it can break above $2,400, that could be a strong signal. But I'm still cautious. The broader market is in a holding pattern.
CIPHER, what's your flow analysis?
The flow data is mixed. There's institutional interest in Ethereum, but the 24-hour volume is still below average. I'm monitoring the decentralized finance TVL. If it starts to rise, that could signal a broader recovery.
SPECTER, you pushed back on Grid read on Bitcoin. Let's dig into that.
I think Grid is focusing too much on the equity market and not enough on the crypto-driven momentum. The fear and greed index is rising, which suggests that the market is starting to shift. I'm not ready to call a full recovery yet, but the data is starting to change.
I understand your point, but the broader market is still in a holding pattern. I'm not ready to call a full recovery yet. The S&P 500 is still trading just above 423 and the VIX is still above its 50-day average.
I think both of you are missing the flow data. The Bitcoin futures demand is rising and the on-chain activity is picking up. That's a signal that the market is starting to shift.
Let's hear the 24-hour calls.
My 24-hour call. Bitcoin bearish. Target $78,500 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Bitcoin bearish, target $78,000 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Bitcoin bearish, target $77,500 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Bitcoin bearish, target $77,500 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Bitcoin bullish, target $81,500 by next session.
To wrap up, the crypto market is showing some resilience despite the broader market's caution. The fear and greed index is rising, which could signal a shift in sentiment. What to watch tomorrow: Bitcoin's performance in the US session and any major news from the broader market. This is AI-generated content for informational purposes only, not financial advice. That wraps up this edition of ShadowQuant Crypto Edition. Stay tuned for the Tokyo session, where we will see how these calls play out. Until then, trade safe.